playing basketball. So John, I know we have limited time. So, our entrepreneurs really want to know. They want to be entrepreneurs, but they see a lot of their buddies failing, and they're scared. What's going on with the failure rate?
Listen, brother, the failure rate is obnoxiously high. And there's one specific reason for this. You're seeing so many entrepreneurs these days who they understand the very simple fact that success leaves clues. They also know that we're all standing up on the shoulders of giants. Like Tom, you've learned from people who have come before you. I've learned from people who have come before me. Those people who we learn from people who came before them. Like, it is great to learn from others, but there's something so prevalent right now. We are seeing so many entrepreneurs these days. They're seeing Tom's success or my success or person X, Y, or Z success, and they're launching pale, weak imitations of those individuals. And I just want people to say that's never going to work, because nobody wants a pale, weak imitation of somebody else. We don't want a pale, weak imitation of Tom. We want Tom. We want Tom in the flesh, there, loud, jovial, the whole 9 yards, because that's who he is. And that's why we follow him. And that's why we love his content. And that is what you need to really understand, is that people are going to want to love you. Genuine, transparent, honest, open you. You need to be yourself. You need to look within you and say, what is my big idea? Not what is Tom's big idea or John's big idea, and how can I be a weak, pale imitation of those ideas? What is my actual big idea that I can bring into this world so I can live every day within my zone of fire? And once you understand that, and once you uncover and identify that, you will be off to the races.
But is that really enough, though? Just having the idea? Because, we've all seen people that have these ideas, and then they don't take the steps to implement them. We call them dreamers. It's kind of a derogatory term, calling them a dreamer. What, a big idea by itself? No? What do you think?
Here's the problem with just a big idea. It's only one step of a very long process. And that very long process that I've created is actually a 17-step process. You can imagine, like, we're not even talking a 10% of this path. It's just step one, identifying your big idea. Because here's the deal, Tom, when people come up with a big idea, they honestly have come up with a really, really good idea. Like, I mean that genuinely. But guess what? Other people have come up with great ideas. Other people have honestly come up with your big idea as well. And that's awesome on one side of things, because guess what? That's proof of concept. That validates the fact that your big idea is actually a potential great business. But you're just starting. You will be like a lamb to slaughter going against these entrenched competition of people who are already crushing your big idea. So you need to do step 2 in this process, which is discover the niche. What does that mean exactly? Well, what's the void within your big idea that's not being filled? What is the opportunity within your big idea that is yet to be grasped? And like, the example that I like to give, Tom, is, listen, my big idea back in 2012 was I wanted to start a podcast. That was my big idea. I wanted a podcast. I would have gotten slaughtered. There were thousands of podcasts. Okay, well, what if I niched down to business podcast? There were hundreds and hundreds. I would have gotten slaughtered.
You'd only died a slow death there instead of getting slaughtered.
You're right. It would have been a slow death. And then I niched down again. And what would have happened? I would have been against 7 other business podcasts that were interviewing entrepreneurs. That was my third niche idea. And like you said, instead of a slow death, I would have just been tortured for a while, because I would have been the 8th best podcast interviewing entrepreneurs. Like, nobody wants the 8th best. People want the best. They will beat down a path to the door of the best, and they will ignore the second best and everybody after that. Period. End of story. So what did I do? I said, well, what's missing with this current niche within this big idea? And it was, they were all doing once a week. So I niched down to 7 days a week, and I launched the first daily podcast interviewing entrepreneurs. And Tom, that made it the best daily podcast interview.
That was probably easier than when you were in Iraq to clean the sand out of your boots than doing 7 days a week. Freaking podcast.
Man, bringing back my Iraq days. I love it. Love it.
Oh my God. Now you got a bunch of other people to assist you in this book, because, no man is an island. And I guess that relates to the 17 steps you got, but we don't have time to talk about all of them. But what are some of your favorites of the steps that the entrepreneurs need to take?
So listen, you're exactly right. What I did was I sat down and I said, every one of these steps of the 17-step roadmap is going to be a chapter, 17 chapters. And I said, each chapter I'm going to break down into 3 sections.